So out yonder there be a pig. I'll be standing 25 yards away. This is the Samick Discovery left-handed riser, modified to shoot thumb release as a right-handed bow. I don't know the weight of these arrows. They're 400 spine, cheap PU fletching to be specific. Well, vanes. They're Musin arrows, MSTJ78HS. I think they're in the 400 something grain range. So I'll be aiming at the pig at about 25 yards. They're going a bit high. I'll walk over there and pull them out. This here is my turret marker. Don't want to step in that. So to keep everything clean, I'll shut this down, start a new one. And you can see, at least at 25 yards, how well it does with consistent arrows. The previous videos I've done with this bow, it's a mismatch of vastly different arrows. So here I have some consistency, and it already looks that way on the target. So once again, the pig at about 25 yards. They porpoise just a bit. Not bad though. That was a bit off. Still hit the pig. I'll go pull those. table where I set the bow is the 20-yard marker. I'm shooting with this quiver here. Don't know how well you can see that. It's a piece of walnut with a leather pouch and a tab to hang over the pocket so you can pull it open. And just a piece of scrap leather here on the top to hold the arrows. Modification that I need to do is probably drill a hole here and here, tighten that a bit. In fact, I tried to minimize the amount of hardware, so I used a screw to secure the belt or pocket clip, drilled holes, and sewed the leather pouch on. That's a nice piece of walnut. Here you can see it tapers out a bit to push the arrows away from the back. So it's another experiment with a wood-based pocket quiver. I'll shut this down and go for another round here. Round 3. I don't know if you can hear it, but this is a very loud bow with its default configuration, or at least with what I've done to it. Definitely needs some string silencers. Got pop that time, again. I'll go pull those. Cut this, start again, go for round 4. Now I'm going to zoom in for a moment. You can see the little piggly. That's what I've been aiming at. Mostly hidden. That was a decent grip. Primarily, I'm doing this just to show you. I can't do the Mediterranean style draw. I typically want nothing to do with the shelf, but I intend to make an ILF aluminum horsebow style riser eventually, and the purpose here is to experiment with how well this works shooting foam release. I'm pleased. I think it works well. 25 yards might not be the greatest distance. Some of my shots at 50 and 60 have been too shameful to put on video. But I think, this is the 3rd session I've had with this. After some time, I think I'll be getting out to the 50 and 60 with no trouble, especially with consistent arrows. So, Samick Discovery, 17-inch riser. It's a CNC machined aluminum riser. And I have put on a piece of Coca-Cola hardwood here, glued to the side of the arrow pass, This is cut way past center, so I needed to do that to bring the arrow closer to center. And then I just have a leather, I don't even know what you call these, I don't normally use shelf terminology, but a piece of leather that sits on the shelf. And this handle here is layered leather, a big thick piece of leather underneath and a thinner piece of leather, and it's actually tapered, so the pinky here has a more narrow grip. It's alright. Another thing I did, because it was cutting into my finger, these were very sharp edges with the grip removed, the original wooden grip, and I sanded those down, and they're nice and smooth now, but I still have a wound, so it's getting me still. But for those of you who want a ILF takedown riser that can be shot the way you want it to shoot, it's not the worst option. I think what the world needs is a ILF compatible proper horse bow with none of this shelf stuff. Just a nice symmetrical grip that works for that style of shooting. The challenge is going to be designing it so that at least some amount of katra can be used. I'll go pull those arrows real quick and cut this again. Again, the previous videos were with a mismatch of arrows. Some of them 500 spine and porpoise all the way there, even out to the 50-yard target. These are all the same. They're a bit lighter than the others that I've been shooting, but the consistency really helps. So hopefully this is a better example of what one of these things can do when used unconventionally with thumb release. Get a look at that. That's a aluminum thumb ring. See if I can get the focus in here. Took a fair amount of time to make this, but I wanted one tailored specifically to my thumb, and it works really, really well. With my Falco, it's really hard to miss. Soon I think this will be difficult to miss with, but for you thumb shooters out there, that's what this is all about. We have a beer can on the top of a pig, and that's what I'm going to aim at 20 yards. Very close. There it is. Popping a beer can at 20 yards with a strange bow. Thumb release. That's it. This here is something some of you might have seen already. It's a thin rip of cocobolo. A very, very nice looking piece. Again, wanting to minimize the amount of hardware I put on it, I drilled and sewed the arrow pouch by hand. Same with the, well, not so I guess, the upper retainer, and I used hardware to secure the belt or pocket clip. But this cocobolo wood is, unfortunately, it's endangered. This is a Mexican cocobolo, from what I understand, and I don't think there's going to be a whole lot more of it coming in. The finish, believe it or not, is beeswax and a bit of cedar oil, I think. No varnish or anything. It sands with, even 150 gets quite smooth, but with a 220 it really starts to shine with nothing on it. And then after you put the whatever kind of finish you want, it really does shine. So there's a, if you wonder why I'm filming everything lateral wise, I use open shot to edit these videos, and it does not tolerate the vertical view very well. It only seems to handle horizontal. So that's a nice pretty piece of cocobolo turned into a quiver. It's very light and very sturdy. It's a great wood. Really cool wood. So another example of a wooden quiver that works quite well. So that there is the very first aluminum thumb ring I made, for those of you who are sticking around for a few extra minutes. And that, I filed that whole thing, well, pretty much by hand. I sanded it and I hand filed it, and that's what I started with. And I ended up passing it on to my friend, who found it equally worthless, and it just sits here. It's a kind of tabletop decoration. But I really wanted a thumb ring, and at that time I didn't have even enough change to buy one, so I made that out of solid billet of aluminum. That compared to, if I can do this with one hand, no I can't, there we go, compared to this, which is probably, it's my favorite of all that I've made. I've made some that are nice, some that are bigger, more sturdy, but this one here is, that's the winner. That just does exceedingly well. So for those of you interested in thumb rings, I took a billet, cut it to a square, more of a rectangle, a nice thick piece, drilled it at 3/4, and then just began shaping it with a mixture of sanding and a grinding wheel with a non-packing aluminum appropriate sander. That helped, and then I use a Dremel with a carbide burr to get the shape. And it's messy, it's onerous, takes a long time, but very rewarding. I have a ring that specifically fits me and works exceedingly well, very well. And I make a lot of wooden ones too, and I give those away. And then in the early days of experimenting with making archery accessories, I started making wooden quivers. It's one of the older ugly ones. It's a nice piece of cherry wood, and I used paracord for the shoulder strap. Has a clip here for the pocket or the belt, and then you just stuff your arrows in the pocket, and that's it. This one here is another cherry wood one. I made this too short. Not so much too short as the clip is too low. Ideally it should be higher, so that the bottom portion actually fits into the back pocket. Rides a bit high. You can see it's angled. Again, that outward protrusion is to keep the arrows from directly contacting the back. So if your butt is this piece of wood, you have it in your pocket, it points the backs of the arrow away from the back. But that compared to this, there's been some progression. This is a piece of walnut. I thought of putting the tab on it so it can be pulled back with the fingers to stretch this out so you're not shoving arrows back into the pocket. It's a piece of walnut, also tapered slightly, not so much, but slightly, to keep the arrows away from the back. And this is the belt clip. And I see if I can get some better resolution here. Probably not much. But this is all hand sewed to the back. I drilled holes. Definitely tedious, very tedious work. But it's a nice little pocket quiver. As I said earlier, I will probably modify this by sewing it here and possibly here to tighten this up a bit. It's too loose. Or I could just take it apart and tighten the strap a bit. So, yep, I enjoy making quivers that work. And yeah, you can make quivers out of wood. It doesn't have to be all leather. It doesn't have to be anything fancy if you have the patience. Belt sander very much helps. So does a bandsaw to get your basic shape, but none of that's 100% necessary. And you can make very functional wooden quivers if you have scrap wood or some kind of wood. So, wooden quivers, they work. Adios, folks.